I'ma get it. You know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the way. Yeah, it's all hard, ain't no fear here. You ain't giving this at all, you steer clear. Never beat, I've been down and I reappear. You got some money on the line, you better put it here.
The Project Tribute Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our nation's first responders. Our vision and mission is to enhance the life-saving capabilities of our first responders through raising awareness and funding for the life-saving work that they do. Our goal with the podcast is to be an educational avenue and a method for our heroes to express themselves. In the podcast, we will discuss various tough subjects. Some of the subjects may be uncomfortable or controversial. Our guests have a right to share their thoughts and ideas, and for our listeners to hear the unedited words of our guests. The Foundation's role is to showcase a diverse array of thoughts and opinions within the first responder community. If you hear something that you do not agree with, please consider reaching out to us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com and join our podcast. If you're a first responder and you would like to share your story, we truly would love to hear from you and learn from your experiences. Please enjoy this week's show, and as always, like, comment, and share to help us grow. You can find more information at www.projecttribute.com. Thanks and have a great week.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the way. Yeah, I'm on the way. On the way. Yeah, on the way. I'm on the way.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jared Gorman. I am the on the Project Tribute Foundation as the on the advisory board. This is Brett Miquelon. He's also part of the Project Tribute Foundation on the advisory board as well. He's a local police officer here in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'll let him introduce himself. So Brett, just kind of tell us who you are, what you do, and any background that you want to let us know about.
Well, my name is Brett Miquelon. I'm a 34-year-old cop. I'm originally from Orange County, California, and I moved here back in 2012 to be around some my nephews and my sister. And I've been actually finished my college out here before I became a cop. Tried to see if what I wanted to do before I became a cop. See if there's any other life that I might do before I kind of commit to something like that. Because what I had been told is that this is the type of job that if it's something that is meant for you, you won't want to do anything else. And for 7 years, that's held true so far. So, but I am currently a detective over child crimes and sex crimes, the type that most people don't want to do. But that's what I've been doing for the last year, and loving every second of it.
Cool. I didn't know you were from Orange County.
Yeah. So I grew up in San Clemente, California. I was in San Bernardino before that, and graciously, my parents got us out of there. Within like a couple of years, it went from like one of the best places to raise your family to like it was worse than Compton suddenly. It's like, we're gonna get out of here. So we ended up moving to beautiful San Clemente, and I talk about a change. But that's where I spent most of my life until I joined the Marines. I didn't even say that. I was a Marine from 2005 to 2009 when I got out of high school. So
I was going to bring it up if you didn't. So
yeah, I don't know I think I just went straight to the cop thing and then totally forewent half of my background. So
there's quite a few Marines on the police force here in Bartlesville, correct?
So there's quite a few military in general. And we got some good Army guys. We have a few Marines, and we've had some that have recently departed from the department to go their separate ways. But yeah, there's a pretty good, strong military showing for Bartlesville PD.
Yeah. So. Well, I guess that's kind of the case for first responders in general, but
yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what. So what was funny is like I wanted my whole life growing up to be a Marine, and I got in, and I'll tell you what, military was not the life. It was just a little too invasive for like my personal life. I was like, I didn't want that, and I missed the people that I was in with. I didn't miss all the BS, and I can tell you right now that any veteran who's out there who's no longer in will tell you the exact same thing. It's always miss the people, not the bullshit.
Right.
But sorry if I can't say that.
Nope, you can do whatever the hell you want, man.
So that was kind of the cool part about when I got into law enforcement. I was like, wow, this is the same like type of people. I mean, yeah, you have quite a wide array, but like in general, it's your type A personalities who, they all kind of think alike and everything. And so it makes for a good, like, cohesive unit, but you're treated like an adult. And I really liked that. So,
yeah. Well, and having that type A personality has its benefits and challenges.
Yeah, that's where I'm unique, because I'm not really your typical type A. I mean, there's a time and place, right? But I think the longer you do the job, the more you realize that that's not going to get the job done every time. There's, like I said, sometimes you need to turn it on.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where that is about the worst thing that you can do. And learning to balance that is a big part of this job.
Sure.
And you really don't, I mean, unless that's not you, then it takes a minute to kind of really realize that. And so, yeah.
So do you feel like you are a kind of a different person when you're on duty or put that uniform on? Or do you feel like you're the same person, at home as you are on duty? I know you have to be.
No, I'm completely different. So that's where it's weird. It's still me, I don't pretend to be somebody I'm not when the uniform's on, but the confidence changes because I'm going to treat you as much respect as I can. I'm not a jerk. I don't have little man syndrome. Hi, I'm 5'8". So I'm not like, I'm not tall by any means, but I'm not the little man syndrome where I need like, I gotta, get in these people's faces and stuff like that. For me, the way I look at it is I'm going to approach every situation differently. And if I have to turn that on, and I have to be that guy, I'm going to do it, because there are people who will try and control you. Or control the situation. And the way I'm looking at it is, you called me here. This is my show now. I am going to dictate how this goes. I'm not going to act like that every time. If somebody is, conversational, respectful, understands that I'm not the one who did whatever I'm there for. If you can do that, we're just going to talk and figure out a solution, and then I'll move on. So, I think that's part of this job as well, is why you have to understand how to approach different situations, and how to keep your cool. But you also need to be able to be that guy if you need to,
Right.
and usually it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And some people are just completely unreasonable and there's no winning.
Yep.
If you're a cop, then you've probably dealt with one. So I will say there are a few cops out there that just don't have to deal with it nearly as much as others. But you know what? Sometimes personalities clash more often than others. There's no getting around that. It's just that's part of life.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of that stuff, but I'll make John happy and ask you the questions that he wants everybody to answer. So first question, why did you choose? I mean, you kind of already explained a little bit of why you chose to be a police officer, but why have you continued to stay in it, and what do you love about it?
I wanted to drive fast and shoot guns. No. So I'll kind of back up a little bit. It aside from, wanting to be, sorry, my dog is jumping into the frame a little bit.
No, you're good, man.
But, so I'll let you guys say hi to my dog.
Oh, I've seen lots of pictures. Is this the one you guys adopted a while back?
Yeah. She, we picked her up. I can't remember when exactly picked her up. I think it was over the summer, but she's less than a year with us. But anyways, where was I? I became a cop. Sorry, I get back on track. I became a cop. So I wanted to first make sure that there was nothing else that I wanted to do more, as I had mentioned before. And a lot of that kind of came from other people talking to me about it, right? When I got out of the Marines, I went to college. And right before I got my associates, I thought about California Highway Patrol. And one of my best friend, really my best friend, she was like, "Oh, that's cool and all, but you have free college through the GI Bill. Why, in God's name, would you not use the rest of that and at least just see if there's anything else that interests you?" And I took a step back. I'm like, "You're right. Let me go get my degree, and then I will figure it out from there." So I finished college. I ended up moving out to Oklahoma right before I finished. I finished here at Oklahoma Wesleyan University.
Where'd you start going to college at?
I started at Saddleback Community College just to kind of figure out what the heck I wanted to do, because I got to shoot you straight. When I was I was not a good high school student. I was a C average at best. And I passed my classes, but that's because my mom is a saint and she made sure that I was doing everything right. And even when I wasn't, and she was able to kind of, get in touch with my teachers back. I'm going to get him back on track. Give me what he needs. And then she would kind of sit me down I have ADHD like an MFer. And so I could not walk in.
As do I.
So,
yeah.
I'm
fully medicated. So
my poor mother, she worked her ass off for me to get through. And I got it done and everything. I'm not an idiot. I just can't sit still. So anyways, I just got my way through high school, and it was always going to be like, I don't need school. I'm going to go be a Marine. I'm just going to go shoot things. And that was not it at all. And I'm totally getting sidetracked to where I was going with this.
College, where you start?
Oh, right. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to college now, and I'm going to have to figure out, where my strengths are in school. Which then I found out that English was one of my strong suits. Which is really depressing for me, because the ADHD makes it really hard for me to sit down and read a book, because I will read the same line over and over. I can read a page, not retain anything, so I have to start back over. It's super frustrating. And and here's the best part. This was great for studying. I would sit down. I would have to plan for a 15-minute nap if I was going to do any kind of homework. It did not matter. I would sit down. I would have my alarm set on my phone. I would start reading, and I could get through 2-3 pages, and then I'd have to set my alarm and knock out for 15 minutes and then get back up, and that nap would help me. I don't know how I figured that out, but I just remember I was always getting tired whenever I was reading, and somehow that worked.
Well, at least what you need to do to fall asleep at night.
I was just going to say it doesn't work. It only works when it's not supposed to.
That would be nice.
So, at night, even if I do fall asleep, I'm going to wake right back up in an hour anyways.
Yeah.
But anyways, went to jumping ahead. Went to Saddleback Community College, figured out English was what I liked. And then I was moving kind of slow. I was doing about 12 credits, and I only had 4 years to get it done. So my first couple of semesters, I was not putting forth the effort I needed. So I was going to switch to California Baptist University. A couple of friends of mine, John Helms and Tanya Shamar, they're from back in California. Actually, it's Tanya Allward now. They were kind of talking to me about this adult degree program. It's an accelerated program. So you can get 2 8-week sessions in a 16-week semester, and it's 9 and 9 for your credit hours. So I get 18 instead of 12. So I could speed right through a lot faster to get my degree before my GI Bill ran out. So I got good way through there, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma came up. Now that one happened because my brother-in-law gave me a call one day. He knew I was done with California. I lived there for 25 years. I was stationed in California. That's all I knew. And he's just like, I know you're hated there. I know you, he knew I wanted to go kind of like move, Midwest, South, kind of country life a little bit. And, he's just like, all right, well, just move here. I'll put you up, and then you can get on your feet, and I'll kick you loose. And so I had this little Scion TC that I loaded down. I was between those 2 semesters I talked about. I canceled the second half and finished the first half, moved out here. And then within a month, I had a job, an apartment, and I was enrolled at Oakwood. And I had 2 semesters to go before I had my bachelor's.
Nice. And what's your bachelor's in?
Communications. So when I switched over to California Baptist, I also realized I like talking. So sometimes that's hearing myself talk. Sometimes it's just talking.
This is perfect for you then.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. I hate hearing myself after I've already spoken, and then I come back and listen to it, and I hate it.
It's weird watching these podcasts over when you do it. And I don't know, it's always a little awkward listening to yourself talk back, but
yeah, I bet. I've listened to myself once, and I annoyed the hell out of myself. So sorry to everyone out there if my voice is not exactly what you want to listen to, but here we are.
that's all right. We don't
Anyways, I got my degree in communications, though. It was kind of more business communications oriented. I had an absolutely fantastic teacher here. So Dr. Weaver is I think he's dean over the business school or whatever. He is.
I think Laura's talked about him before. He's at Oakwood, right?
Yeah, he's an amazing professor. And he actually, and I've told him this before, he's given me the class that made the most impact in my career. He had this, it was a business ethics class, and he had this little, it was I can't remember if it was weekly or monthly assignment. I think it was weekly, where, there would be a scenario, and this book had 12 views, and then or 11, I think it was 11 views, and the 12th one was the golden rule. But it's you have to approach this situation and write a short little, just a little paragraph about this is how you handle it based on this viewpoint, and this one, and this one, and this one. And you go through all of them. And then at the end, after you've done them, you pick which one you think is the one that you should use to handle that situation. And it was this weird, it's not, there's no wrong answers as far as which one you would use, because the whole point is you're supposed to learn other people's perspectives.
Right.
And talk about helpful for law enforcement. You're in this situation where you're talking to people whom you would never agree with. And then all of a sudden you've now got this ability to listen and then understand where they're coming from, which is not where you're coming from.
Right.
And approach it completely differently with empathy or just understanding, or, just whatever. You suddenly can understand that position a lot better. Obviously, sometimes your emotions still get the best of you. You aren't going to handle every situation perfectly, but it really helped, because, while I may not have agreed with this person, I understood where they came from. I'm
right.
So
have you,
that was class.
This is off topic, but you kind of said something that reminded me of it. So have you ever read the book, Verbal Judo?
No, but that's a common,
I know it's kind of taught
phrase in law enforcement, and basically it's usually how to talk yourself out of a dangerous situation. And
I just listened to it on an audiobook, and it's something else, man. It's not only that, but it's just, how to communicate to anybody. Your spouse, your family, your patients, in my case,
so I absolutely love that, because here's the other thing. One of my favorite parts about investigations, I love the interview room.
Yeah.
I love interrogating people. I love sitting there and getting inside somebody's head and understanding, not just that they did something, but why,
But
how.
You need to read this book then. I listen to it on audiobook. I've got an hour and a half drive. I'm in Ponca right now, but I've got an hour and a half drive, when I work here. And so I listened to it and I finished it. And
yeah, I'm in the middle of one right now that's about, so I have one book, and I'm for the life of me, the name of it is escaping me. It's out in my truck, but it's a book about, it's about emotions and understanding why people are the way they are with certain communications. And so what I like about it is it's really good for interrogations, because it's not, I got you, I've caught you in a lie. It's why people are responding in certain ways. So yeah, you can use that to catch people in lies and figure out when they're uncomfortable in certain situations and everything. But it's more about, hey, you might be messing with somebody here, if you approach because it's about relationships, it's not about interrogations. So you might be messing up, your kids or your wife or your husband or your, whatever family member approaching it this way. So this is what kind of signs you can be looking for to understand that. And so it's a different approach and I like that, because my job is not to screw people's lives up. My job is not to make myself feel like somebody is in a lie. Like if somebody's telling me the truth, I want to be able to point to things that are like, hey, no, I feel like this person's being truthful. Yeah. If you focus, I feel like if you focus your interviews on just trying to assume somebody's a liar before you fairly had a chance to talk to them, you're going to actually screw the case up. And that's one of my biggest fears in law enforcement, is throwing the wrong person in jail. It sucks, because like I have done it before. I've had to go get somebody out of jail because I went back and reviewed the information and realized, oh my God, I was wrong. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I felt so horrible that I put the wrong person there. And
well, I mean, you guys have so much information to deal with. And like you said, you don't know if they're being truthful. I mean, they could be covering for somebody. I mean, there could be so many different aspects of that you just don't know.
Well, and we like to pride ourselves on making the right call at the right time. And that was the wrong call at the wrong time. And that was one of my biggest weaknesses, is I used to rush things. I used to be too fast. I mean, I've been told time and time again by every supervisor I've had, slow down. And that has been one of the biggest things for me to learn.
Is that why you think you got the wrong guys? Because you kind of rushed that, or is it?
I could have.
If you don't mind answering.
So what could have happened, and this wasn't like a horrendous thing, but yeah, this person stopped at a stop sign and they were suspended. They stopped at a stop sign, but where they stopped was a little bit too far back, but it was like there was a vehicle in front of them. And so what it looked like is they just rolled right on through. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to argue this with me? Well, my car had 2 cameras, and one was a wide angle that was further out. And so when I reviewed it, I didn't look at that angle. And so it didn't sit right with me. And so like later on, I went back and looked at it, and I'm like, oh my God, the other angle showed that they stopped. And I felt so, I'm like, I went to the judge. I told him like, hey, I screwed this up. This is all on me. I had to get the ticket dismissed. I had to run to the jail. I had to get him OR'd and I mean,
what's OR'd mean?
Bless him. It basically means that you're just going to release them on a judge's order. I mean, I can't remember the actual.
I asked that just because a lot of people that are watching this.
Yeah, I forgot what the terminology stands for. I forgot what it stands for, but but basically it's, when you're letting them out on their own recognizance. But I had to go let him out, and God bless him, he was so gracious about it. But I felt.
I bet your stomach dropped when
I damn near cried. Like I was talking to him. I mean, I just put this guy in jail overnight. Like that's how long. Like because like that was the next morning. I came back. I'm like, man, this is just. And I went back to watch it again. I'm like, oh shit, I should probably look at this angle. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Man, nobody's perfect, but
yeah, well,
no. So yeah, I believe you answered my question. Kind of what? So why? I mean, if you had to say one thing is why you love this job and why you've stayed in it as long as you have, what would you say?
There is no other job that you can do that affects where you live. Really in a positive. I mean, if you screw it up, it's in a negative way. But if you're meant for this job and you really have the heart and the passion to do this job the right way, you can make such a difference to be a good influence in your community. And you have a handle on stopping people from doing more doing more in a negative way. So, well, here you guys get to meet my other dog. So sorry, I'm that.
She looks a little older than your other one.
She is 7 years old. I got her right after I became a cop, actually. But anyways, and now more so than before. So when I was a beat cop, it was awesome. I love that part of the job. It's super fun. I mean, you get in pursuits, you get to chase people on foot. You do get in fights, and you obviously you don't want to you don't want to do that. But, you get in those situations, and while you're in it, it's fun. But I mean, it's a unique situation. But now what I'm doing is I actually feel the most change for people, or the most help for people that I could possibly do. So when I'm working with child crimes and sex crimes, you're talking about the victims who are really going through some of them. I mean, obviously there's tons of horrible, horrendous crimes that people have to go through. But you start talking about rape and, molestation of kids, you have like the defenseless, or the ones who, have, maybe they started out tough, but I mean, at some point, relentlessness can break you down. And I don't care how tough you are. If somebody can overpower you, you're helpless at that point.
Yeah, that's a life altering.
Yeah. And you have to, and with this kind of position, it's different because I have to now find a way to approach this where I can make sure that I'm getting a truthful story, because I have had people lie about it. And that's a whole nother ball game. And I'll talk to you about that.
The victims, or
yeah, I've had victims who were afraid of getting in trouble, so they made up a story. And it's sad because I hear like those the believe her and the Me Too stuff, and I'm like, I wish I could just take what somebody says and go with it, but it's not always that simple. Because 9 out of 10 people are not going to lie about that. So you approach the situation by believing. Yes, absolutely. Tell me your story. And then you try and follow that, and you try and make it true, or make sure that it's true and everything, without putting them in a situation where they feel like you're really questioning their integrity. But then every now and then one of these cases pops up and you're like, this story doesn't exactly make sense. And you start poking holes in it. And then you realize like, okay. And then you have to actually ask them. I mean, and that is such an uncomfortable conversation. But man, when somebody comes forward and you actually have the chance, and like I said, it's very rare that I get somebody who gives me a false story of when it comes to like rapes and molestations and stuff like that. Most of the time it's complete. Yeah, it's true. Maybe there's some details that are a little bit off, but for them, by and large, it's true. But you get to sit there and you listen to these stories, and that messes with people's heads. But you listen to it, and then you get to go talk to this person. And this is where the whole the whole interview thing comes into play. And this is where you get to kind of see what the person you're talking to, the suspect, is really about. And that's where you get your confessions. And God, I love getting confessions about that stuff, because you get to that point where you're just like, man, I cracked it. I figured out what they were hiding. And
that's got to be rewarding.
Oh God. I tell you what, the first time I ever got a confession actually was one of my first cases. I was working with Denver Millard. He was the child and sex crimes detective before me. So we kind of did this little like baton handoff thing. And I mean, confessions, and not just for that. I mean, I've gotten confessions for, burglary. I've actually murder confession was, that was something completely. So we had a 2-year-old that died. And when we got that confession, that was a whole different high, because you're just like, oh my God, like this person is telling me about something so horrendous that they did. And you're sitting there trying to contain yourself, because inside you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But, externally you're trying to maintain your composure, because, you need this information. And, it was just, it's really cool when you actually get to somebody to break and say what actually happened. Or on the flip side of that, you start catching them in lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And it's like, it's as good as a confession. I mean,
yeah.
If you're catching somebody and their word is absolute garbage, I'm like, that tells me something. Like, why are you lying about this stuff? If you didn't do anything wrong, just tell me the truth.
You guys are almost psychologists in a way. I mean, you guys have a lot of psychology you guys deal with. So
Yeah. And God bless my sister. She is she's a counselor, and she's really freaking smart. And I talk to her about, and I don't talk about my cases, but like,
Sure.
I'll ask her about things that are kind of parallel to cases so I can kind of understand where people are coming from.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because she'll start laying out all this technical terminology and explaining what each thing means and everything like that. And it is something for me. Obviously, I can't use that, and in court, I'm not a counselor. I didn't go to college for that. I didn't study that. But like, to learn what is happening, just so I kind of know what's going on, it's really helpful because I might approach something completely different. Hey, I understand what this person's disability is, or not necessarily a disability, but some kind of
like a mental disorder,
Yeah, sure, exactly,
or whatever. Yeah.
Or if it's just some kind of mental condition, it's not even a disorder. It's just something that people have that's not necessarily changing well, you get the point.
Anxiety, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. In fact, she's helped me with that before. I've talked to her and tried to kind of ask her about different types of anxiety, and that's helped me actually approach it because I had a girl who was having an absolute panic attack. And, the more that I've talked to people and listened to what's really going on, and not somebody who's in the middle of it, listening to somebody from the outside talk about what theirs is like, I've been there with another cop who, good officer just didn't really understand the situation and backed them off and approached it differently. And calmed the situation much better because I knew a different way to approach talking about kids with autism. Now granted, that's a specialized field in all in itself when you start talking about those kinds of disabilities, but still, like, you start understanding, you start listening to people with autistic kids, you start listening to seminars and stuff like that about people talking about how to approach this stuff, and it changes your approach. So you don't end up in some dangerous situation when you have more information. I mean, it's
kind of the same thing for us. I mean, I can't treat a kid with autism the same way that I treat a kid that doesn't have that at the same age. I mean, I can't. I mean, especially when it comes to like, touching them, like just do a blood pressure, or I mean, I put my pulse ox on them, and that could be the end of the world to a kid with autism. But it's just it's important to understand that kind of stuff.
And there's been a large shift. I don't want to say it's too much of a shift. The crazy part is people talk about cops not having mental health training. First off, there's a requirement every year to have that stuff. On top of that, I'm sorry, most of the cops that I know, they want the training. They want to know that stuff because it's just like anybody else who takes pride in their work. You want to be a better cop. You want to approach a situation better. The last thing I want to hear is that I'm an incompetent detective, right? It's the last thing I want to hear. If you're the criminal who's, at the, suffering the wrath of the law because you made a terrible decision and ruined somebody else's life, I don't care what they feel about me because, frankly, you've earned what's coming your way.
You did your job.
But I would hate for a true victim, to feel like I'm incompetent because I didn't know something I should have known. Now, again, should know is a very relative term. What you should know versus, once you start getting into professions, there are things you absolutely should know. But
you hit on it. I mean, you take pride in your job and you want to be good at your job. Yeah. There's always something to learn. I mean, you can always get better at things. I mean, there's so much training out there that you guys can do. And I mean, even me as EMS and fire, I mean, I will never, I feel like I'm a professional student of EMS at this point. So
the older I get, less I know. Talk about, the first responder world is full of, I'll tell you what. So when I was still in field training, so FTO is field training officer. When I was still in my field training phase, when I first got hired, my first night on night shift, the first call I ever got on night shift was the guy who took a freaking arrow through the stomach. That was the first call I got on night shift. And I'm like, holy shit.
Wow.
And that was everybody's first bow and arrow strike to the
Thrown
stomach.
into the fire.
Yeah, it's just like, who the hell gets an arrow to the stomach? And it wasn't like it was a training arrow. So, I mean, it didn't go through. So that was another
Still
weird thing to see because, like,
dude, you can say whatever you want. You don't
through.
have to censor yourself.
Yeah,
I know you.
I'm trying
I
to.
know
I'm
you.
trying to be polite because not everybody wants to hear that. But this
We have a big
arrow,
explicit on our podcast, so you're good.
well, this arrow went through his stomach and it was like pushing the skin out of the back, and there was like one drop of blood. So that's like it barely went out the back. And so, and the funny thing is he was the one at fault. He actually had tried to attack a person in their house, and the guy pulled an arrow and shot. And so so the way that it happened is he talked a bunch of shit over text messages and then came to the house with friends. This victim had his bow and arrow. He actually had a couple sitting right by his door. And the guy starts charging him. So he's like, all right, and grabs a bow and arrow and shoots. He misses the first time, right? So the guy sees, he's like, oh, shit. So he turns around, runs away. And then the guy starts putting the bow back, and the guy comes back. And he had already set that one down. He's like, oh, I'll just grab the other one. He pulls the arrow, and the guy gets right up to his door and shoots him in the stomach. And it was funny because I actually saw the guy 6 months later, the suspect. And I recognized him. I'm like, dude, you're the one who went. It was just like, yeah, I was an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, you were. Like, that was a really stupid thing to do.
When you see people in public that you've treated, or so depending on what it is, right? I mean, I'll see them at Walmart, and they're like, "Hey, you took care of my dad," or you remember me from my drunken night or whatever. And it's like,
I've gotten some dirty looks. I've gotten so here's, God, man, law enforcement's weird. I've had so many people thank me at the jail, and I'm not the only one. There's plenty of cops who tell you the same thing. It's not some special thing. It's not something weird that I'm doing. I think there is this stigma that, like, hey, cops are all assholes and they're all trying to ruin everybody's life. No, we're not. In fact, you'll get, if you are polite and respectful, and we might have to take you to jail. Doesn't mean I have to be a dick about it.
You're doing your job, yeah.
And I mean, if you can recognize that, like, hey, you had a warrant, you screwed up, you're probably going to be out tomorrow. I mean, yeah, sometimes you're not. But I mean, like, a lot of times it's like, hey, you'll be out in a couple days, but you messed up. You forgot to pay this. You forgot to show up to this. A plus B equals C in that kind of situation. You messed up. You didn't show up. Judge issued a warrant. You have to go to jail. Consequences of your actions. If there's, honestly, it's to the point where, like, I've gotten a lot of dirty looks for people that I really wasn't even rude to, but they don't like me because I had to do my job. I've had thank yous. I have one friend of mine who Severin. Sorry, dog's starting to bark at people. It's probably nobody. Exactly. There's nobody there.
The wind.
One of my friends used to deal, and I actually met him because I was looking for him for a warrant. That's our first meeting. And he went to drug court because he got caught and everything. And he ended up getting one warrant. I got him for that one too, because I stayed talking to this guy. And then he eventually he got into drug court. He started doing better. I had to hold him accountable again because he messed up, but he understood. He owned it. And then he ended up going, since that time, he has gone through the entire drug court program. He passed it, and he passed it well. Sometimes there's questionable, but this guy passed that drug court really well. He worked his ass off. And I would see him at work. I'd stop by, I'd talk to him. He's a good dude. And it was one of the few times I've seen somebody come off of meth and start doing really good with his life. He's raising a kid. His wife right beside him. I was actually able to go to their wedding. I wanted to go to his drug court graduation, but I missed that. But it's funny though, because like I wasn't sure how that one was going to go, because I thought for sure I was going to be dealing with somebody who was going to just be an absolute dirtbag because he's a dealer. And
Just based on what you've seen, I mean,
yeah, and you kind of sometimes you make those judgments a little too soon. He's a good guy.
we all do it, man. I mean, it's
and so he's still a buddy of mine. He's a good guy. He knows I use this story. I talk about him all the time because I need people like him.
Yeah,
because his story gives other people hope. I've had a number of people, because sometimes you can tell the ones that you can talk to who are actually listening to you, and I've been able to use him to talk to other people. And you know what? That story may give them hope to try and fail once, because if you're addicted to meth, you're probably going to have to go to rehab a couple times. I think the average. I was told this a long time ago. I don't remember where I heard it, and I don't remember how I heard it. But it's like somebody was telling me like it's probably about 5 rehabs or something like that for meth. And honestly, that's
bad, man.
That's not far fetched with how addictive that stuff is.
Yeah,
but I've had 2 people that have actually beat it. One of them was just getting started. I use his story too, but I mean, he was an MP in the Army. But I have one who did that, and one who's the one I already told everybody. And it's like those come in handy when I start talking to people about this stuff. So this is a very roundabout way to talk about the fact that I might see somebody in public, but you have these opposite ends of the spectrum where I'm like, am I going to get in a fight or shot at or something over at Walmart today? Or am I going to see somebody who I helped or may not even remember that I helped, or maybe he's confusing me with somebody else. I don't know. But like, which one am I going to get today?
Right.
That makes it really interesting for your personal life, especially when you live in the town you police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Bartlesville, I call it's a small, big town, right? I mean, because
say the same thing.
It's a decent sized town, right? But
yep.
Everybody knows everybody, and everybody hears about everything. So,
I will say though, this town is so good at hiding its crime for people who are not involved in it. Like if you're not in, okay, let me put it this way. Okay, I'll throw some shock value out there. From April to December, I worked. Actually, no, not even December. I want to say November.
21.
From about April to November, not adult rapes, not child abuse, just child sexual abuse. So child rape, molestation, lewd acts, whatever the case may be, just child sexual abuse, 40 cases.
40?
Granted, yeah, not all of those. That's a approximate number, give or take a few, but it's right around the 40 number. Obviously, yeah, not all of them are accurate. Some of them were fabricated. Some of them were mental health things that they said, they're not there upstairs. I've had a couple who have lied to get out. They were trying to get out of trouble, and so they almost screwed somebody else's life up. I've had a few of those, but for the most part, a lot of those had legitimacy to them.
Wow. So do you do just Bartlesville, or do you guys have? I am
a Bartlesville police officer, but so this is where it gets interesting with this whole McGirt decision, right? So I'm a Cherokee Marshal. I'm cross-deputized with the Cherokee Marshal Service. I am cross-deputized with the U.S. Marshal Service. So I can handle federal, and I can handle Cherokee cases, and I can handle Bartlesville cases. If something has happened within my jurisdiction, I can handle it. I do have one case that happened in Tahlequah, and I can't talk about it, but
sure,
I've had a case that happened out there, and I was able to investigate that because it is a Cherokee case, and this happened within Cherokee Nation. So since I'm Cherokee Marshal, and some of it happened here, some of it happened there, and since it's a tribal case, which is going to go federal, I'm working that case through my cross-deputization.
Okay.
And then it'll eventually get turned over to the feds. But that's...
So are you the only
no
person doing this?
No, and this is a big mess in and of itself. So there's a lot, and I'm not going to get into the politics of this,
Yeah.
but I'll explain briefly. The McGirt decision is messing with some people, right?
So can you explain what that is?
So McGirt is a person, and it is I think it's McGirt v. Oklahoma, I think is what the case would be. But it went to the Supreme Court, and they determined that, and honestly, I have since learned from people smarter than me that really the Supreme Court had no place in this. This should have been a Congress thing, I guess. But they determined that Oklahoma, the state, does not have jurisdiction in Indian affairs. So this is where it gets complicated, right? Because what if what if one of them is Indian, one of them's not? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody out there, Native Indian. I'm gonna, just for the sake of convenience, I'll probably switch back and forth between the two. But when it comes down to, you have who you can charge through what direction. There are cases that I have to work and give to the FBI. There's cases I have to work and give to the Cherokee Marshal Service. And then there's cases I work through the state. And it all just depends. It depends on which party is Native, which party is not. It depends on if both are white or other American. We should usually just phrase it that way quickly. So usually the half and half thing is like, if it's a Cherokee suspect and a white and a white person, then usually that is going to have to be handled through this court. If it's reversed, then it goes through this court. So it's just this really big convoluted mess. And again, I would go into more detail, but I don't really think it's going to do a lot of.
No, you're good. I wasn't too familiar with that, so I just for my benefit, I wanted to a little bit. But
Sure.
So, are there multiple people that do exactly what you do?
Yes.
Bartlesville,
so all of the Bartlesville detectives and most of the department is cross-deputized to the Cherokee Marshal Service. Most departments in Oklahoma have cross-deputized with whatever their surrounding jurisdiction is. So like Creek Nation has, people cross-deputized for them. There's, and honestly, I am not good with what nations are out there, but, different departments are going to get cross-deputized with different tribes in order to be working the cases that they reside within. So Bartlesville is in the Cherokee Nation. So if there's a Cherokee case, then it's going to be worked by us, because it's not going to do me a lot of good because for Creek Nation, because most of the stuff that happens here is going to be Cherokee related.
So you're talking cases in general, or like I was asking specifically with the child sex crimes and all that kind of stuff.
So that's a whole nother thing, right? So there's the Major Crimes Act. Major Crimes Act has a list of different types of crimes that can occur where the federal government will take it. So I often am working with the FBI and the Cherokee Marshals. So the thing that is problematic with the Cherokees is their maximum sentence is 3 years, and the max amount of charges you can be convicted of is 3. So the most time you could get in a Cherokee Nation prison is 9 years. That's not enough
for anything.
Yeah. So that's not enough for a rape. That's not enough for a murder. That's not enough for any of that stuff. So the Major Crimes Act is nice, because now when I start getting okay, this person was raped, let's say somebody was brutally raped and, whatever other charges you want to throw in there. Well, I'm going to look at that and be like, well, I'm not going to go through the Cherokee Marshal Service to do this. I'm going to go through the FBI, because I might use the Cherokee Marshal Service, because it's usually what I'll do is I'll arrest him through the Cherokee Marshal Service. I will send everything I have to the FBI, and then they will indict him or her. And, we'll move on from there. But then the feds take over, and, whatever else I need to get for the feds, I'll go get and add to the case file. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's, when you start getting those bigger cases that need longer sentences, you're going to start using the FBI instead of the Cherokee Nation. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's there's a lot to it, and I mean, it's still confusing.
we could talk for days about all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff too.
And I definitely don't want to talk about that type of thing for a long time, because
No, you're good. You're good.
This whole thing is a mess when it comes to the Cherokees and the state of Oklahoma, the federal government. Don't get me wrong, I understand the whole sovereignty thing, but like, criminally speaking, it needs to be held up on their end as well.
Yeah, they're their own world. I mean, well, so I think we kind of answered that first question. I know you love your job, and I think you've explained why you love what you do and why you stayed in it so long. So, second question, and this is kind of John and I kind of like to ask this just to get the public's kind of view of this. John asked me this on the first podcast, and I didn't really know how to answer it, but he kind of explained it like, when he's out in public and they see a uniformed officer or firefighters with the fire truck or an ambulance, we're all in the uniform, whatever, and it can kind of be intimidating. I don't ever think of it like that. I mean, we're just, regular people just wearing our uniform, I guess. Some people wear a business suit, and we wear our dress blues or whatever. How would you suggest somebody in the general public, let's say they see you at Walmart and you're in uniform, or you're sitting at a one of your secret spots trying to catch people speeding or whatever, how would you suggest they come and tell you, thank you for what you do, or just come say hi, or whatever?
You got to be careful about where you do it sometimes. And sometimes it's not the right time. So those are two things I got to say right off the bat. Now, don't get me wrong. It's appreciated. We love the support. We absolutely do. I mean, this is the community. I want to be there for you guys as much as I hope that, or I hope I'm being there for you as much as I want to be there for you guys. But again, time and place is always important.
I mean, let's just say you're at Walmart grabbing a snack or a drink,
and you walk up to me, understand that I might be a little awkward, because that is you have to kind of put yourself in our shoes. It's like, thank you for your service. I'm like, thanks. I've gotten to the point where I've been thanked enough for like the Marines and for the police stuff that I kind of have my conditioned response of, like, hey, thank you for your support, or I appreciate you. Thank you. Sure. And it's probably just going to be that unless you extend the conversation. And I don't want to scare people away from that, because you know what, it is a good thing to have that kind of support. And that's, and I love that from the community. But I would hope that people wouldn't take offense if that officer might be short with them that day. It's like, oh, thanks, and just walk off. Like, they may have a rough day. They may have gone through something. They may have seen something that they weren't comfortable with. You don't see this kind of stuff in everyday life. People may see it once in a great while. In 10 years, you might see one dead child. Whereas as a cop, you might see multiple in a year. That's not easy to walk up on. Your field even more so than mine. That's not easy to walk up on. That's not easy to get out of your head. Hell, let's put it this way. Here's another shock value one. First time that I ever saw child porn, I was pissed. I was so mad, because like, you don't know how to prepare for that. Like, you don't want to. It's not what I want to look at. I feel wrong. I feel like, why am I looking at this right now? And then on top of that, it wasn't just me. It was more along the lines of like, some of these kids that I had to look at pictures of didn't even know they were being exploited.
Right.
And like, that sparked a rage that I didn't even know, because you don't think about it like that. You
and this is local, right?
Yeah, it's going to be some kind of child porn. It's going to be something horrendous that you're looking at anyways. But, when it's the innocence that's being exploited, That's just something you didn't know that I needed. I didn't know I needed to be mad about. Like, kids in the bathtub. It's a classic picture that a lot of parents take, right? There are two kids playing there, but then all of a sudden you see a stamp on it. It's like childporn.com. I don't remember what the site was, but it was very obviously child porn. Like, it had something. It was not trying to hide what it was. And I just remember looking at that, and I'm like,
Man.
this son of a bitch, like, just took somebody's kid's picture and put it there for somebody else to get off to. And that kind of stuff makes you mad. And so, yeah, that first day, actually, one of my friends saw me leave the park. I burned out of the parking lot, and I had to kind of calm it down a little bit. but
I mean,
like,
props to you, man, because
yeah,
I don't know that I could do your job. I would be
here's
I'd
the
be
thing.
fired or put in jail for beating the
Here's the
shit out of
thing.
somebody.
This job is different. This specific one. I went into that not sure how to prepare for it, just for that, right? And there is no way to prepare for that. You're gonna see it, and it's gonna ruin your day. But I have to. So what I've started reminding myself is that, one, it's not my justice, right? It's somebody else's. My job is to make sure that they get it. Right? If I take justice into my own hands and get it for me, I have selfishly just taken away what they deserved for my own selfish desires. That's not fair.
Yeah.
2, if I play the long game, that person gets a stronger sentence. Right? My goal is not to don't get me wrong, I am not trying to ruin anybody's life. I've said that earlier. But you may have ruined it yourself, right? If you're that kind of person. My goal is to make sure that you see that you experience the justice that is owed to the person that you just wronged. So my long game of making sure that I've done everything right ensures that you get a longer prison sentence.
And you could catch multiple people, right? Instead of just that one person.
Yeah.
If you play that long game and do your research right, you might catch, 3 or 4 other people that are that are involved with it.
Yeah.
So
when I have, and here's another one, parents, please look at your kids' phones. For God's sakes, I've had 12, 13, 14-year-olds flirting with guys in their 30s, guys in their 40s.
And they don't
sending pictures of themselves. Like, what is going on here? Like, this is terrible stuff. And here's the thing. I'm going to go after the perverts that are out there. But eventually, if you are 17 and younger and you send an explicit picture of yourself, you are distributing child porn. The first time, I'll probably go after that suspect. Oh, every time I'm going to go after that suspect.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go after them. I'm going to let the parents handle that. The second time, you're going to hear from me about what you're doing. The third time, I'm probably going to charge. In fact, depending on how bad it is, I might charge you on the second time. If it's horrendous, I could do it on the first. But I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is, and this is I had to kind of phrase it like that because it's not a one size fits all. But like,
sure,
these kids out here are they have access to such a dark and horrid thing, which is the internet. These people are talking to people that are going to have their pictures and their information to put wherever they want. That picture might go on the internet and never come down. That picture could come up, circulate later, and then all of a sudden ruin somebody's job. They ruin getting a job for that kid in the future. There's so many problems that come out of it. And I have parents that are completely unaware of what their children are exposed to or exposing themselves to, like, as far as like what they're showing to the public. And it blows my mind.
Well, and this is a whole other conversation for a different day, but when it comes to parenting, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you see, even the older individuals and even the people that I see, health-wise, the living conditions, could have been prevented if they had good a good family structure, a good male role model, female role models. I mean, parenting is,
The majority of
I
problems
think,
happen
what
in
has
the
led to a lot of the issues that you and I both deal with on a regular basis. So,
Yeah. Majority of the problems that we have today happen in the home. They start there.
Yep.
Now, I also want to be fair. I know people, and I mean, I've grown
yeah,
up.
I'm being general with all.
Yeah.
I mean, with
Yeah,
that.
and I've grown up with those families where like we raised all of our kids the same, but this one in the middle, or this
Right.
last one, or the first one,
Always
like
the middle child, man.
fucking black sheep went off and did all the wrong things, but everybody else was fine. And it's really there's no telling, right?
Right.
I know people who are the firstborn. I know middle kids. I know the youngest. But I mean, the youngest are always the best. No, but
I beg to differ. All right.
when it comes down to it, though, there's no formula that's going to absolutely guarantee that all the kids are going to be doing well. And there's no, I mean, like I said, I have watched some excellent parents have some really great kids and then have one or two that just went off the deep end. I don't know what happened. And
yeah,
you get, but a lot of that does come down to who your kids are hanging out with, what kind of rules you're setting, and are you following through with your boundaries? Are you following through with your punishments? Not over the top, of course, but having a punishment in general is important. So, but yeah, like you said, that's a whole nother podcast.
All right. So last question, and then we can get into some nitty gritty.
Okay.
So kind of along the same lines of the last question. So, we talked about how they could approach you and tell you thank you, whatever. Is there anything that you would suggest that they either not ask you, not bring up? I
know people who do have issues with being asked certain questions. Now, I can tell you right now, I
just want to know personally. I answered, don't ask me what my worst call is. And some people are like, I'll tell you whatever you want. I'm an open book. Just for me personally, I don't, because I've seen some horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And I still haven't probably dealt with a lot of that I should, in a way that I should have. But so I don't want to talk about it, and you probably don't want to hear it. And that was kind of my answer, but your answer could be completely different. So I just kind of want to know your personal.
Tune in next week as we continue the discussion with Brett and Jared. Podcasts air every Friday at 8 p.m. as well as our YouTube channel. Be sure to check us out at www.projecttribute.com. This podcast is hosted by the Project Tribute Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our first responders. Thank you for listening. For more information on our efforts, check us out at www.projecttribute.com. If you're a first responder that would like to share your story, contact us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com. You can find us on various social media and podcast sites by searching the Project Tribute Foundation. 100% of donations are used to save lives while our retail store pays for any of our operational costs. Thank you again, and please be sure to like us, follow us, and share our foundation with your friends. Thank you and have a great day.
Said I couldn't have, get the team. I got a vision for the things you ain't believe. And here's the motto, hard work is over everything. It's that comeback. I'm calling plays, hit the pass, then the run back. Yeah, I'm far ahead and gotta run last. But we ain't letting up, we never done that. Ain't nowhere to hide. You ain't gotta see me come and keep me on your mind. Cause I be on the way.